Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that Kha'Zix likes Bush.
I can't put this into this podcast.
You're listening to the League of Legends podcast of strategy, innovation, and hosts with great beards. This is
First Blood.
Hello again and welcome to First Blood, the League of Legends podcast. I'm Alec and I'm joined once again by my co-host Will. How are you doing tonight, good sir?
I'm doing good. Very good.
Good. This is the first time we're doing this over Skype, so this is kind of cool. I like it. It's interesting. You can see me that I'm in fact not wearing real people clothes. I'm wearing pajamas right now and talking about League of Legends. My favorite nerdiest things to do.
I'm not even wearing pants right now.
Of course you're not. Why would I expect you to wear pants? That is just completely weird for me to expect the Will to wear pants. That is just... Who are you? Why are you even talking to me right now? Anyway, guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for putting up with us for another hour of your life. Today, let me give you a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. First, we're going to run down our news and notes for this week. We're going to dive right into our champion review after that, and we're going to talk about Kha'Zix, the Void Reaver, today, which I'm very excited about because I love this champion so much. Then we'll jump right into our item review, which this time we're going to be talking about the Iceborn Gauntlet. And then we'll jump into our CC of the week, our Did You Know fact. And then we'll end up with some closing thoughts and let you guys get out of here because you don't want to sit here and listen to us all night, I'm sure. But let's go ahead and kick it off with some news and notes. So, Will, biggest thing going on right now is that while we speak, the Season 3 qualifier for the League of Legends Champions Series is just winding down and closing out. And this is the first major tournament that will kick off Season 3 for everybody. This is where we find out who's going to be joining the top teams from Season 2 on the Pro Circuit for Season 3. Some of the teams that you all should know that are already in Season 3, of course, are from the North American circuit. We have guys like TSM, that's Team Solo Mid, Dignitas, and CLGNA. Those guys are already in, as well as from the EU, the team formerly known as M5, SK Gaming, and Fnatic. Those guys are already in Season 3. However, this tournament is for any up-and-coming teams to maybe get a shot at joining these guys in Season 3. And, Will, were you able to catch any of this over the weekend?
No, not really.
Well, you are just bad at this game, aren't you?
No, I'm pretty good actually because I don't really spend a lot of time watching other people play.
Well, you know what? Just because I have a kid and I have some time to sit and watch, you know what? Never mind. But I have caught some of this tournament, and I have to say that it's actually really cool because I was wondering if Season 3 was going to look a lot like Season 2 as far as laning and if we were going to do the normal North American sit and passively farm for a long time or if it was going to get really aggressive. And these new teams are actually adopting the aggressive strategy really well. For example, just tonight, in fact, there was a game that I just watched against Meat Playground and MRN, two new teams that are battling it out to make it into Season 3. And these guys both pushed down, each team pushed down top tower and bottom tower within the first 7 minutes of the game. So just incredibly aggressive play coming out of these new teams. And Will, do you think that'll have any effect on the pro teams that are used to Season 2 play and maybe haven't seen this new meta yet?
It'll certainly have an effect for at least one tournament, but I mean, these people are professionals for a reason. They're gonna adapt as quickly as they possibly can to these changes if they in fact are sweeping as they potentially could be. So there could be some pretty decent potential to sweep one tournament, but once that happens, if the meta does change, I think that the players will obviously do their best to try to adapt.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just really cool to me, though, that we get to see some of this new stuff, because I was just very excited during the end of Season 2 to see, some of the stuff come from the Koreans and to see some of this aggressive play. So being able to see it going into Season 3 with these new guys adapting, and I'm just very excited. This qualifier has really pumped me up for Season 3, and I'll be very excited to see where it goes from here. That's that. We don't really have any of the results yet that I can report to y'all, but go ahead and check it out if you're interested in finding out the results from the tournament. And, just expect that, and maybe try to watch some of these games on replay, because expect this stuff to be what you see going into Season 3, as far as the pro circuit goes. So that's really all I have to say about that. Okay, so going into our next part of the news and notes, just to let you all know when Season 3 actually begins, the first big tournament besides the qualifiers is going to start on February 7th. That is when Season 3 officially starts for the first part of it. So be on the lookout for the start of Season 3 coming up. Root on your favorite pro teams, and let's make esports big this year. How about that? I like watching professional League of Legends. Last of all, on our news and notes, not too exciting unless you're a Shaco fan, but there is in fact a new Shaco skin in the store. Very Korean, very cool looking. I don't play nearly enough Shaco to buy a Shaco skin, but, some of you out there still enjoy a Shaco, and if you do, this skin is pretty cool. So, check out the new Shaco skin, and maybe give that a look-see over there in the purchase. Well, I don't even have to ask you about skins since you don't buy them. Alright, so let's go ahead and leave the news and notes behind us. Not too much going on this week besides the qualifiers, and since we don't really have a winner yet, I can't exactly report on who's going to be making it and who's going home, but, So, let's look at this champion review, and Will, are you as excited as I am? Because we're talking about Kha'Zix the Void Reaver this time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the best characters in this game right now.
Oh, by far. He's just an awesome idea of a champion, in my opinion. Just the terrifying flying cockroach of doom. Let's take a look at these abilities real quick. We're going to run through his abilities just like always, and just like always, we'll go back and we'll analyze each one of them a little bit deeper, and you guys can draw your conclusions from that. But his passive is called Unseen Threat. When Kha'Zix is not visible to the enemy team, he gains Unseen Threat, causing his next basic attack against an enemy champion to deal bonus magic damage and slow. His Q is Taste Their Fear. Kha'Zix passively marks each enemy that is isolated from nearby enemies. Taste Their Fear deals physical damage to a single target. Damage increased on isolated targets. If he chooses to evolve Taste Their Fear, it will evolve into Enlarged Claws. Damage to isolated targets increases dramatically, and Kha'Zix also gains range on his basic attacks and Taste Their Fear. His W is Void Spikes. Kha'Zix fires exploding spikes that deal physical damage to all nearby enemies. Kha'Zix is healed if he is also within the explosion radius. If he chooses to evolve Void Spikes, it will go into Evolved Spike Racks. Void Spikes fires 3 spikes in a cone instead of just 1, and this effect consumes Unseen Threat to slow and damage all enemies struck. His E is Leap. Kha'Zix leaps into an area, dealing physical damage upon landing in an area of effect. If he chooses to evolve Leap, it will go into Evolve Wings. Leap's range increases dramatically. Also, on champion kill or assist, Leap's cooldown reset. And finally, his R is Void Assault. Each rank of Void Assault allows Kha'Zix to evolve one of his abilities, giving it a unique additional effect. When activated, Void Assault stealths Kha'Zix, triggers Unseen Threat, and increases movement speed. If he chooses to evolve it, it will go into Evolve Active Camouflage, and Void Assault can be cast 3 times, and Kha'Zix takes reduced damage while in stealth. So, kind of a big mouthful there as far as abilities go. But let's go ahead and start with this passive, though, and that is the Unseen Threat. So when Kha'Zix can't be seen by an enemy team, if he's behind a wall, if he's in a brush, whatever that is, his next basic attack against an enemy champion deals bonus magic damage and slows. And, we were just talking in the previous episode about Zed and how his passive is just so awful. But this passive is one that I could get behind. What do you think?
Yeah, this passive is pretty sweet. I mean, it doesn't have a cooldown attached to it, so if you're good, you can really be pumping out these unseen threat basic attacks, and later on, potentially even with void spikes, every couple seconds, you just run into the bush, run out, hit them, run back in, run back out, hit them. It's pretty hard to deal with someone who's really good at hugging the bush and jumping out and harassing you. So yeah, I am absolutely in love with this passive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is what these kind of passives where jumping in and out of bushes are what kind of make champions like Nidalee and champions like, Rengar so good, is that, you don't realize how many bushes are on Summoner's Rift until you have to play against a guy who has a passive that relies on bushes or relies on not being seen to deal a ton of extra damage. And especially on someone like Kha'Zix, who can just deal a ton of damage really quickly anyway, this passive just makes him terrifying immediately. And that's why I love it, personally. So let's move on. That's his passive, Unseen Threat. So let's talk about his Q next. We're going to talk about Taste Their Fear. And this is his single physical damage, single target spell, and it's increased on isolated targets. And he marks every enemy that is isolated from a nearby ally. And if he evolves it, then he gets the big old claws that deal a ton of extra damage when he uses this. And it increases the range of his basic attacks and Taste Their Fear. So, this is just one of those abilities that proves that when a champion is well designed, like just very well designed, Taste Their Fear just feeds off of Unseen Threat so well. And I think that's what I love about Kha'Zix's just whole package. Because, like, if you're in Unseen Threat, and most of the time you're playing Kha'Zix either top lane or in the jungle, so you've only got one enemy champion you're going after anyway. So if you're in the bushes at the top lane, you activate Unseen Threat, then you go in there and you use Taste Their Fear, and you're getting extra damage and the slow because of Unseen Threat, and then you're getting the extra damage off Taste Their Fear because they're isolated, and blah, 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 blah. Man, it's just amazing. I'm just blown away by Kha'Zix in general, but Taste Their Fear and Unseen Threat just play off of each other so well, and I think that just proves what a well-designed champion Kha'Zix is. What do you think about that?
I agree.
Wow, you are just all kinds of talkative. But good to know that I cover things just so well. So that's Taste Their Fear. Let's talk about the Void Spikes. And I think this is the one that everybody is kind of just in love with on Kha'Zix, besides maybe his leap. And this is where he fires those exploding spikes that deal physical damage, and he gets healed if he's also within the explosion radius, which I didn't know that at first. I completely overlooked that part when I picked up Kha'Zix and was playing with him, but, that heal is no joke. Like, no joke at all. You want to get in somebody's face with Kha'Zix. So if you're right up next to him and you're shooting void spikes into their face, that heal is can definitely kind of sway the outcome of that fight, because you just get that little bit of extra sustain. And, I know that you play Kha'Zix and play against a Kha'Zix, like, this Void Spikes ability, what do you think of it?
I love Void Spikes. It's ranged harass, potential for, sustain. If you evolve it, it's really, really good at clearing creep waves. I mean, and honestly, I got my first pentakill using this. I was Kha'Zix, obviously, and they were doing Baron, and I jumped in and Void Spiked them and killed all of them. I had evolved it, of course, so I just fired it in there, and they all fell over and died. Pentakill.
Yeah, once this is evolved, it's even more terrifying, just because of that cone is just so wide, and the range on this is so long. And what a lot of people don't know is that, like, if this hits, each of these little explosions deals a little bit of area of effect damage. So, like, you're not safe behind your minion wave. And it's just really cool. And it also consumes Unseen Threat to slow and damage. So you can use this to feed off of his passive, too. I think it's just scary because that cone is so wide. I mean, the fact that it's a huge area struck, and it's a ton of damage, as Freak would say, yeah, Kha'Zix is just all kinds of scary.
Yeah,
Flying cockroaches for the win.
It's as wide as Ash's volley, just to give people an idea of just how wide he fires this.
I did not know that, but that's amazing.
Yeah, Ash's volley might be just a teensy bit wider, but I mean it's basically the same width.
Yeah, but Ash's volley doesn't deal area of effect damage and all kinds of other nasty stuff.
Yeah.
So, and now we come to the real scariness of Kha'Zix, and that is in his E, his leap ability. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, Will, and say that this leap is arguably the best leap in the game. What would you say?
I think Kassadin would have something to say about that, but
But that's not a leap. That's a teleport.
it is essentially the same mechanic.
I don't know, because I think what makes this leap so good is just the fact that it resets if he gets a kill. And if you're jumping in with Kha'Zix, you're most likely getting a kill. Most of the time that I've played him anyway. Every time I jump in, I'm getting a kill, or at least an assist, and then my cooldown is resetting. And if you evolve this leap, it's so far. Like, the jump is just so far. I'm pretty sure it outjumps a Kassadin. But you're a big Kassadin proponent, so, take up the offense of your Kassadin.
I mean, I would have to look at the numbers as far as the range of both of these abilities, but either way, the fact that we're even having the conversation means that the ability leap is extremely good if you're comparing it to Kassadin's ultimate.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Is it's not even his ultimate, which is pretty crazy. I think another thing that just makes this ability so overpowered is the fact that when you land, you're dealing area of effect damage wherever you land. So it's not like a Jax where you got to jump and land on one guy and then you're beating on one guy, and it's I think it's a little bit of a wider area of effect than Jace's To the Skies. Obviously, it's not as wide as like Pantheon's ultimate, but it's a crazy good leap.
Yeah.
I love this ability. This is where he gets the name Flying Cockroach of Death. So, that's all I have to say about Leap. It's just that it's just so good. So good. So let's move on and talk about his ultimate, which, as if this guy really needs an ultimate, and I guess that's kind of why they made this ultimate kind of meh as far as ultimates go, but this is his Void Assault. And, besides the fact that you get to evolve an ability every time you rank up the ultimate, the actual ultimate itself is where he goes into the stealth mode for a few minutes, and he takes a little bit of decreased damage, it triggers unseen threat, and increases his movement speed. So it's a really good chase down ability, and it's also really good to just pop it when you jump into a team fight to take a little bit of extra of reduced damage. I don't know if it's really like an amazing ultimate. What do you think?
The ultimate, it's helpful in the middle of a fight just because there's lots of abilities flying around, and if you're skillful, you can really help to reduce the amount of damage you take pretty dramatically. He gets that little boost of speed is good for chasing, it's good for escaping. It's one of those things that's not gonna make or break the champion, and it's definitely a useful ultimate, but that leap, I'm surprised that they didn't make Leap his ultimate, because that's how good Leap is, and Void Assault. Most of the time I don't even put an evolution point in it, because honestly, like, his other abilities are so good that, this could be worse than it is, and he would still be amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't think you're alone with not putting an not evolving Void Assault, because, as far as I've seen on Kha'Zix players, it's you upgrade your Void Spikes, and you upgrade your Leap, and then last you upgrade your Claws, and Void Assault is just kind of there. But, I barely even touch the R button when I'm playing Kha'Zix, to be perfectly honest. But, I'll say that it's good when you desperately need it, but otherwise it's not like Malphite, where my whole job is to set up positions so that I can use my ultimate or anything like that. This ultimate is definitely one that it's just kind of there. It's there if you need it, but you don't really need it.
Yeah, it has a lot of really good applications, like, especially if you're, if you are in a situation where you're being ganked and you pop your R, they don't necessarily know which way you're going to go. So sometimes you can do some really good fake outs if you're in an enemy jungle, and you get caught. You can do some good fake outs. You can just leap over a tree line and get out that way. You can use it to set up really good positioning if you're jungling with him and you're going in for a gank. Because if you're in a bush, you can just pop that R, run towards them, and then jump on them, and there you are in their face.
Yeah, all kinds of fun time with Kha'Zix. So those are Kha'Zix's abilities. So now let's talk about Kha'Zix as a champion, where he kind of fits in on a team role. Because if any of you have been watching any Hyelo play, or reading anything that these guys have written about Kha'Zix, the pros are very, very divided on where they feel that Kha'Zix is strongest. Obviously, when you first look at him, he feels like he wants to be a solo laner. That means top lane. Like most of the time, that's where you're going to see Kha'Zix. However, he has a very, very strong jungle, as has been demonstrated, just because his ganks are just ridiculous, and he has surprisingly a very strong mid presence. And this has been showing up a lot recently in Hyelo play, is that Kha'Zix has been a very, very good counter to some of these stronger AP champions, like Katarina, people that rely on kind of staying back a little bit, Karthus, these guys that kind of just want to hang behind their minions and farm. Kha'Zix is able to kind of punish those guys, kind of like in the same way that Talon punishes casters that play really passively. So, Will, if we're looking at where we think Kha'Zix is strongest, what would your opinion be on that? And then I'll talk after you.
I'm gonna say jungle on this one. I don't think he's better than Talon as far as countering an AP, just because he doesn't have a silence like Talon has.
Sure.
And he's good top against certain people, but his problem top is that he's a little bit squishy, and it's really hard for him to take down really high health, high armor targets. So I really like him in the jungle. His sustain and his mobility are really beneficial. His ganks, like as you said, are really strong. It's really hard to counter jungle him just because he can just jump over the wall and run away. So I'm definitely gonna say jungle. But if you want to run him top, you have to be careful that they don't just pick Darius, Olaf, or Garen and just crush you, because you will not beat them with Kha'Zix.
Now, I will say that I have torn apart a couple of Olafs in top lane using Kha'Zix. Darius not so much, just because of his, just the incredible damage output that he puts out. But, I'm going to defend the Kha'Zix top lane, because that's where I love to play Kha'Zix. I do love him in the jungle. I think he's incredibly strong there, especially because his ganks are, even though he doesn't really have CC besides his passive, his ganks are very, very strong because of his leap and his ultimate. But the top lane Kha'Zix I like very much because of, like I said, the interaction between his passive and Taste Their Fear. Just being able to jump in and out, run in and out of that bush. He's got great poke with his leap or with his void spikes. The void spikes give him a little bit of sustain, and he feels very much like a Jackson. I don't know if he's the same caliber as Jax in the top lane, because Jax has the dodge, but he definitely has that feel to me. He's somebody that I want to, I want to jump in, I want to hit, I want to jump out, and if you don't deal too much damage to me really quick, you're going to find yourself in a precarious situation, because Kha'Zix really makes people burn through their health pots. So if you don't have another way to sustain the top, you're going to be going back a lot. And going back against Kha'Zix is just not good. It doesn't seem good.
Yeah, I mean, you can play him like we said earlier. Mid, he's fine. Top, he's fine. Jungle, he's fine. So I think that's just a testament to a really well-built champion, that he's not so stuck in a single role. You can play him differently. His evolution mechanism really is different for all three of those roles. I think, you probably get void spikes at level 6 if you're jungling, whereas if you're top, you may not necessarily want to get void spikes first, and if you're mid, you may not necessarily want to do either one of those. Maybe you want to get leap first, to really cover that distance. But that's just the great thing about Kha'Zix is that you can, even if you're building the same items every game, which a lot of times you aren't, you can really play him pretty differently from game to game, which is just really a great way to build a champion.
Yeah, it really does just show how much effort Riot put into Kha'Zix as far as making sure that he was a well-built overall champion. And I agree with everything that you just said there. Hey, nothing bad I can find on that. So, with Kha'Zix being as versatile as he is he, as some people have been calling him, is he going to be the premier champion of Season 3? Like, is this the guy that is going to see the most bans, the most picks, very similar to how, what am I thinking of? Like almost like Lee Sin was in Season 2, where, like, Lee Sin was either banned or picked all the time. And if you didn't have a guy who could play Lee Sin on your team, you were banning him. If you had a guy that could play Lee Sin on your team, you were playing Lee Sin. So is Kha'Zix going to kind of niche into that role in Season 3, especially with these new items, which just are, just play so well into Kha'Zix's hands a lot of times. So are we going to see him be a premier champion of Season 3?
Yeah, he'll certainly be a premier champion. I don't know if he'll be the premier champion. He's certainly amazing, and he's in the conversation, but I think a couple of other recent champions are also in that conversation as well, and Jace being probably the biggest contender besides Kha'Zix himself. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of Kha'Zix.
Yeah, me too. I love me a Kha'Zix. So, we've been kind of singing Kha'Zix's praises this whole time. So, Will, if we were going to build ourselves a Kha'Zix, let's take a look at how we would build him, A, for the jungle, and then B, for the top lane. What would you say to that?
Well, for top lane, I mean, you probably just want to build, a pretty standard load for him. Black Cleaver, Trinity Force, Frozen Mallet as your offensive items, and then maybe a Frozen Heart, maybe a Sunfire Cape, maybe some Magic Resist. I mean, the defensive items really depend on, who on the enemy team is really dishing out the most damage. But pretty much his loadout top is going to be, Merc Treads, Black Cleaver, Trinity Force, and then whatever defensive items seem good.
Yeah, I like that. With Frozen Mallet especially, because you're going to be able to stick onto these guys when you jump on them. But yeah, pretty much just exactly what you said. Just go bruiser and go big or go home.
Yeah. In the jungle, you're probably going to want to start off, as most junglers do, especially the AD ones, with Hunter's Machete and 5 potions. His clears are pretty good. He's got good sustain. You probably want to get a Wriggles Lantern, and then pretty much I would just probably build him the same way as top, except that maybe instead of you might just want to sell the Wriggles Lantern later on, but I'd build him pretty much the same way.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would probably do different is the boots. I would probably, instead of doing a defensive boot in the jungle, I've had a lot of success with doing like boots and mobility, just to give him that little bit of extra movement speed to just make his ganks all the more scary. But I think that's more of a personal taste thing than an actual strong build.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen from Shaco that boots and mobility give you really, really good presence all over the map. A lot of times, people will see you mid and then they'll expect that they'll have a certain amount of time before you can possibly make it to another lane. But those boots and mobility really kind of mess up that combat math. And you can really just show up in mid and then be at top or bottom in 10 to 15 seconds with those boots and mobility. So those are real good, I think.
Yeah, and if you add on the extra couple seconds you can shave off by leaping over walls and stuff like that, I mean, Kha'Zix basically can show up anywhere on the map that he wants to in the amount of time that he wants to. I mean, it should be Kha'Zix goes where he pleases, because basically he does.
That's very true.
So that's really all I had to say about Kha'Zix. Just very straightforward, very, very, very happy with this champion. Do you want to add anything before we move on?
Just buy Kha'Zix. If you've got 6,300 IP or whatever amount of RP it takes, besides Jace, there's no better champion you could be buying right now than Kha'Zix. So go and get him, play him. He's awesome.
Yeah, Kha'Zix stock is definitely going to go anywhere but up. Invest in Kha'Zix. Change your future. I think we just found a new motto for Kha'Zix. Invest in Kha'Zix, change your future. So, Ryan, you can make all checks payable to First Blood Podcast on that motto. I will be patenting and copywriting that motto just so that you all are aware, because I'm going to extort this for all the money I can. But, yeah, so pick up the Kha'Zix, learn to play him, because he's definitely going to be a big boy in Season 3, and you're going to want to learn how to use this guy. So let's go ahead and move on now to our item review, which this week we're going to talk about the Iceborn Gauntlet. And you build this sucker from a Sheen and a Glacial Shroud. It gives you plus 40 ability power, plus 500 mana, plus 60 armor, and plus 15% cooldown reduction. On top of all of that, you have a unique passive called Spellblade, which is after using an ability, your next basic attack deals bonus physical damage equal to 125% of your base attack damage to surrounding enemies and creates a field for 3 seconds that slows enemies inside by 35%. This has a 2-second cooldown. Oh my gosh, the Iceborn Gauntlet. This item is just insane. Will, would you like to kick off the conversation on Iceborn?
Yeah, this item is really good. There's a bunch of different champions that want this. Probably the most noteworthy of them being Maokai. Just because Maokai is going to jump in there. He's going to pop his ult. He's going to, root you. He's going to throw stuff at you. He's going to be incredibly disruptive. And now he gets to slow everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's just insane. Now, that being said, Iceborn Gauntlet can be a little bit tricky, because while it gives you the plus 40 ability power, it doesn't actually give you any more base attack damage. And that Spellblade ability does go off of attack damage, not off of ability power. So, do you really look to build kind of hybridy to make this passive really, really good, or is it just kind of a bonus that you're dealing that base attack damage?
I really don't think that the damage is really the point of this item. That slow is definitely what you're really going for. So, like for instance, while we were talking, I compiled a short list of people who might really like to build this. So obviously Maokai, because I already said that. Rise really benefits from this item. We're looking at Singed, also really benefits from this, and Malphite. So those 4 champions, you're probably going to want to build Iceborn Gauntlet on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially someone like Malphite, because, I mean, on Malphite, you're already building stuff like the Frozen Heart and stuff like that, and this just complements Frozen Heart, like, just unbelievably.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have all the mana you could need. You're gonna have all the cooldown reduction you could need. You're gonna be slowing them. You're gonna be reducing their attack speed. It gives a little bit of ability power. Honestly, I would still build this even if it gave no ability power, just because it's so good in so many other ways.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ability power is just an absolute bonus. Just like a kind of, here, let's see what this does if we put ability power on this thing too. Oh my god. So, if we're looking at Iceborn Gauntlet, obviously the closest relatives to it from Season 2 would be Frozen Heart and Frozen Valley. Is Iceborn Gauntlet just better than these items? Or, do you, if you have the choice, do you build Iceborn Gauntlet over Frozen Heart, over Frozen Mallet? Well, I mean, Frozen Mallet maybe not, because you're looking at something a little bit different, but definitely this is very, very similar to Frozen Heart. So, do you just kind of like skip Frozen Heart now and just go straight for Iceborn Gauntlet?
Well, I mean, it's really going to depend on what the enemy team composition is because these items do different things. So, for instance, most of the time I'd honestly just build both of them. The champions that like this item also like Frozen Heart, so they go really well together. But sometimes you can skip Frozen Heart if they don't have a lot of champions that are, focused on their auto attacks. So let's say, they have like an AP jungle and an AP top and somehow an AP mid. So if they only got one person who is, firing off those auto attacks and is building attack damage, you could probably skip your Frozen Heart. But most of the time you're not going to want to skip this skip the Gauntlet because it's that passive is just always going to be useful regardless of what you're facing.
Yeah, I mean, and it just it just gives you so much. I mean, you're getting ability power, you're getting a ton of mana, you're getting a good amount of armor and a ton of cooldown reduction. I mean, this just has someone like Rise written all over it. Someone that wants all of the mana they can possibly get, plus that little bit of extra ability power, plus the cooldown reductions that, as if Rise's cooldowns weren't scary enough as it is. You give him an item like this, and suddenly, I've seen Rises that build this item, and then just 2 or 3 hits, and whoever they're aiming at is dead, regardless of how much health they have. So, I mean, they've had to nerf Rise a couple times in the past. Does this make Rise just incredibly scary again?
I could definitely see this item getting nerfed a little bit. Most likely, maybe a small hit to armor, a small hit to mana, a small hit to maybe cooldown reduction. Because as it stands, this just gives you so much stuff for, I think it costs, 3,400, and you just get so many things on this item for your money. I don't think they're going to nerf Rise, but I definitely could see this item getting tuned backward a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. But I think this is a good idea of an item that it's gonna, see a lot of changes coming from the game. Just because you don't really know how powerful an item like this is until you see it in game, and I think that Riot's gonna have a really hard time maybe adjusting on the Iceborn gun. But another question, real quick, is we said this item is really, really, really good, but do we expect to see this guy popping up a lot in Season 3? I mean, we know that Rise is a premier mid that gets played a lot. We know that Malphite gets played a lot. Maokai is obviously one of the premier junglers. So do we expect to see a lot of Iceborn Gauntlet?
We'll see it if we see those champions, because there's no reason, if you're playing Rise, Malphite, Singed, or Maokai, I'm sure there's others, but those are the ones that jump to mind as, like tier 1 style champions. If you have one of those guys, just build this item. So, yeah, if we see those champions, which we likely will, then we'll almost certainly see this item.
Cool. So, keep an eye out for the Iceborn Gauntlet, and, definitely pick this up and experiment with this, because this does give you so much that you can really just kind of mess around with this item and, try it on some different people, because it does that passive definitely gives you a huge boost to your attack damage, just mess with this, and send us an email at firstbloodpodcast@gmail.com, and just let us know what you find with the Iceborn Gauntlet. Do you find that it works really super well on certain champions, and who does this item just make unbeatable, and who is this item just absolutely terrible on, and you would never, ever, ever build it. But just let us know what you guys find, and we're going to keep a very, very close eye on the Iceborn Gauntlet going through Season 3. Because I definitely think it's a premier item, and Will, I think you agree with me in that regard.
Oh, yeah. This item is tier 1, absolutely.
Build it. Build it. End of story. Just build it. Okay, so let's move on to the last thing of on our docket, which is going to be our CC of the week. And this week, we are going to be talking about Root/Snare, because these two abilities are very, very, very similar, these two forms of CC. So let's Will, give us a quick rundown of what exactly is a Root or a Snare.
Well, basically you're just preventing them from moving. That's pretty much all that is.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be like some good examples of some roots would be like Zyra's little ensnaring thing that she uses to, or Swain's Ravenclaw thing, who's never moved or comes up. But like basically, like a lot of people attribute root and snare to being very similar to stun, but in a way, it's just like completely not. Because while you are preventing them from moving, they can do anything that they want while they're rooted or snared. You know, they can still use some of their abilities. They can still attack. You're not preventing them from dealing damage or anything like that. You're just preventing them from moving for a short time. So, how does this stack up as a form of CC? Because there are people that have some really, really good snares. You know, like, well, now the new Amumu, since his is kind of a root slash snare now instead of a stun. Rise's Rune Prison is another really good example. I mean, we've been pretty high on Rise this episode. And Morgana, her Dark Binding. So definitely some really, really good champions that have a really good root or a really good snare. But how does this stack up on to the other forms of CC that we've talked about?
I'm going to give this one a solid 5. It's definitely good. It can be very good, especially the ones that can root multiple people, like Zyra and Lux. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty fair. It's good. It's not the absolute best, and it's certainly not the absolute worst. So yeah, I'm giving this one a 5. I think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm going to go exactly where you are and say 5, maybe 6. But I would definitely say, and well, you can agree or disagree with me on this, but I would say that it's probably the fairest form of CC. Because while you are impeding somebody's movement, and, you know, with a couple champions you can impede a ton of movement from everybody, but at the same time, you know, you're not, like I mentioned, you're not preventing them from taking damage-dealing actions. So, is this CC ability just incredibly fair in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, you don't go up against someone with a root and just become incredibly aggravated and embittered towards the game. It's actually, they talk about one of the things that Riot does when they design champions is they try to create champions that have really good what's called counterplay. And what counterplay is a mechanic of a champion that requires you to, you know, do certain things in order to get around that champion's ability, almost like a little mini game. So, you know, for instance, with Lux, you know, you're trying to stay behind at least 2 minions, or you know, running up and down instead of backwards and forwards. Same thing with Zyra, minus the 2 minions. And let's see what else we have. Amumu, really not a lot of counterplay there. Morgana, same thing. You know, you want to run, you know, not away from her or towards her, but up and down in order to dodge those line snares. So yeah, it's pretty fair because you can actually do something to potentially avoid it, unlike a lot of stuns where you're just getting stunned regardless.
Yeah, and that's another interesting thing too, is that like with a majority of these root and snare champions, these are skill shots we're talking about here. Like Zyra's, Lux's, Morgana's, all of these are skill shots. The only ones that I think are not skill shots is obviously Numu's ultimate, because that's an area of effect. But I don't believe that Rune Prison, Rise's ability, is a skill shot. I don't play Rise, I've never actually played with Rise. But is that a skill shot? I don't think it is.
No, Rise is a point and click, which is why he is a great champion to start with, just because, you know, you're getting that snare off, and it's a pretty powerful snare too. I think it's 1.5, maybe even 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's long. It's a very, very long snare.
Yeah, so that's a point and click. One of the, I believe it's pretty much the only point and click route in the game. So pretty similar to a Taric or a Scion. You just click on them and they're snared. So it's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I would go as far to say that Rise's snare is probably the best. Probably, if it's not the best, then it's definitely tied for the best. root or snare in the game. Just because, like you said, it's a point and click. And all the rest of these are skill shots, and they can be somewhat easily avoided. Like the travel time on the Dark Binding for Morgana is pretty slow, so you can kind of step out of the way. The one for Zyra, you can obviously see that it's coming because it just ripples all the way up the field. But with Rise, if he rear prisms you, you're stuck, and you're not going anywhere for a few seconds. So I would probably go out on a limb to say that Rise has the best root or snare.
Go out on a limb. I get it.
I don't get the reference that time. Okay, so back to what we were saying about root and snare. Kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about really quickly with root and snare is that a lot of times, instead of this being a more offensive ability, a lot of times this gets used as a very, very good defensive ability. And personally, this is how I use root and snare a lot. If my, let's say one or two guys on my team are getting chased down by somebody jumping in and rooting or snaring the guys that are in the lead of the pack, chasing these guys down, it can really be the difference between life and death for like your AD carry or something like that. So, is this a better defensive ability than, say, an offensive form of CC?
Honestly, I think it has equal application defensively and offensively, especially for the people who have a skill shot snare like Lux, Morgana, Zyra, because you can clear out bushes, and that's really, really helpful.
True. Okay, so that's root / snare. Probably the fairest form of CC out there. It falls right in the middle of our scale, right out of 5. But definitely play a lot of these champions that have it, especially Rise, because that snare is just ridiculous, and I'll probably be playing more Rise now in the future because I've been playing them. But it's a very good form of CC, very good implications defensively as well as offensively. So pick up a root / snare champion and give this a shot. So we're coming to the end of yet another time here, but before we leave, we have a Did You Know Fact. Get excited.
Ah!
You're not nearly excited enough. This week, we actually have a very relevant Did You Know Fact as opposed to the one that I had last week, talking about Heimerdinger and Syndra. This week, we're going to be talking about, who else? Kha'Zix. And another very interesting character, pretty new to the league, we're talking about Rengar. And for those of you who don't know this, did you know that Kha'Zix and Rengar have a bonus quest attached to them if they're on opposite teams going into a game on Sunday Drift?
Well, considering this was my suggestion to add to the podcast, yes, I did in fact know that.
Okay, yes, you did. That's just what I'm just saying. Did you know what? Never mind. You ruined it. You ruined the whole thing. I'm going to go cry in the corner now. Please explain to the good people, what is this interesting interaction between Kha'Zix and Rengar?
Okay, so basically, you have to have a couple of conditions become met in order for this special interaction to happen. Actually, 3 conditions. Condition number 1, you have to have Kha'Zix and Rengar on opposite teams, as you said. Condition 2, Kha'Zix needs to be level 16. And condition 3, Rengar needs to have a fully charged Bone Tooth necklace. When all of these conditions are met, Kha'Zix and Rengar will both gain a buff called The Hunt Is On. And essentially what this buff gives you is you have to kill the other Kha'Zix or Rengar, depending on who you are. First, assists do count, so as long as they die and you're part of the kill, you'll get a benefit. And then the buff will go away. So one of you is getting a benefit, not both of you. So if you're Kha'Zix and you succeed, you will in fact get a 4th evolution point, which is really freaking good.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, because a fully evolved Kha'Zix just seems like, oh no, so bad.
Yeah, so that's awesome. And then if you are Rengar, you will lose your Bone Tooth necklace, and an item called the Head of Kha'Zix will replace it. And what that item is essentially the same thing as a fully charged Bone Tooth necklace, except that when you die, you don't lose stacks. So you don't really have to worry about dying anymore, because you just have this item, and it's like any other item. You just have all of the Bone Tooth necklace's abilities, and they're there for you as long as you are in the game.
That is so sweet. I mean, that is just really, really, really sweet. I love the fact that Riot is willing to put little things like this into the game, especially from someone like me who really, really loves some of the lore behind these guys. Like, this just plays right into the Kha'Zix and Rengar lore. Because for those of you that don't know, apparently, Kha'Zix was the one that took Rengar's eye. And that's why he wears an eye patch, is because they've fought before. And they're both these, like, incredibly skilled hunters. And, Kha'Zix kind of got the better of Rengar. For the first time, Rengar didn't get his prize, and he lost an eye because of it. So this just plays right into the lore of, you get these two guys on opposite teams. Of course, they're going to be gunning for each other the entire time. So that's just really, really, really sweet to me.
Yeah. Honestly, this probably benefits Kha'Zix a little bit more, just because if you are Rengar and you have a fully stacked Bone Tooth necklace, you're probably already winning the game by leaps and bounds, no pun intended. And so, like,
I see what you did there.
You saw it. I didn't really plan for that to happen, but there it is. So, like I said, if you're Rengar and you have a fully stacked Bone Tooth necklace, then you're probably just going to win the game with that fully stacked Bone Tooth necklace anyway. Whereas Kha'Zix, he actually gets more powerful than he should logically be able to. So I think if you're Kha'Zix, you definitely benefit a little bit more from this than Rengar.
Well, in a way, I can see where you would say that, but at the same time, I mean, it's really hard not to die before you get 14 stacks on a Bone Tooth necklace. But you don't necessarily have to get kills to get a stack. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it also gets a stack if you get an assist, correct?
Right, so every team fight, as long as at least 2 people are dying, even if you lose the team fight, even if you get aced, you'll still end up with a positive ratio, and your Bone Tooth necklace count will go up, even though you got crushed in the fight.
So yeah, I mean, it's not quite as hard as it seems, but I mean, and having one that is just never ever going to lose a stack again seems like it makes Rengar really, really powerful. But I mean, I probably agree with you on this, that Kha'Zix gets the longer end of the stick here, but definitely don't count out a Rengar with a fully stacked Bone Tooth necklace that never goes away if you happen to be able to kill it. That is incredibly scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. I'm just saying that Kha'Zix is certainly the better of the two.
Sure. So that's our Did You Know fact for this week, and this kind of stuff is what we're talking about when we say Did You Know facts. We want y'all to find these really, really, really cool interactions or little tidbits in the game that Riot throws in there that might pass you by if you weren't looking for it, or something you didn't really notice before about certain champions interacting with each other. But this is like as cool as it gets to me, in a way, because this is just Riot saying, we're really upping our ante as far as champions that we put into the game. Champions are going to start playing off of each other as well as just having really cool things associated with themselves. And this Kha'Zix and Rengar interaction, I hope, is an indication of stuff to come as far as these funny little buffs that you can get just by having, like, your nemesis champion on the opposite team.
Indeed.
But, yeah, that would be really cool. We'll see. Like, I want there to be some kind of evil Yordle that, like, gives Teemo a buff if he kills him. But mostly just because I want to give Teemo buffs, because I like to.
Did you know? We have a secondary Did You Know. Did you know Teemo is the most killed champion in League of Legends?
How sad. Why would any of you kill an adorable little Teemo? He just wants to put down his mushrooms and kill you to death with them. Just burn you. But he's so cute. Don't kill Timo. Love Timo. Give him hugs and let him kill you with mushrooms. So, yeah, that's pretty much our show for this week, guys. Well, that's all that we have for you tonight. Thank you so much for listening to the First Blood podcast. As always, I'm Alec, aka Eat More Chicken. I was joined by my co-host Will, aka Sinscar, and we will see you guys next time on First Blood.